And our great Queenslander today is Noel Pearson. Everyone knows Noel Pearson. He's an inspirational Aboriginal leader. He's a land rights activist. He's more than that, though. His list of achievements is unbelievable. He's the chairman of Good to Great Schools Australia, an advisor for the Cape York Partnership. He's a history and law graduate. I'm talking to him today. He's fresh from delivering a speech overnight to more than 1,000 Year 12 students from across Australia virtually and in person. So they were from BBC, Clayfield College, Somerville House, Sunshine Coast Grammar. That was just a few of them as part of the Presbyterian and Methodist Schools Association. And it was their inaugural Australian Leadership Lecture program. He joins me now. Good morning to you, Noel.
Hey, good morning, mate.
Hey, what did you tell 1,000 Year 12 students?
Well, this is their inaugural Australian Leadership Lecture Series. And
Yep.
the association and the Presbyterian schools are going to run this every year. And I've been honoured to deliver the first one. And, you know, just a tremendous opportunity to talk to these marvellous Year 12 students from these four schools in the southeast here. I have a long association with Clayfield College.
All right.
When I was a young article clerk in Melbourne back in the 90s, my Jewish friends at the firm said, the first thing you got to do is support your children in education. And I heard about a young girl that was at Clayfield College whose mother in Kowanyama in Cape York was selling cakes to help her out with the expenses at the school. And that was young Tanya Major, who went on to become the Young Australian of the Year.
Wow.
Tanya was Kowanyama's first university graduate.
Wow.
And Clayfield has had many, many Indigenous students go through, finish Year 12, and a lot of them have gone on, like their peers at that college, gone on to university.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was just so gratifying to be there with the Clayfield girls, but also, you know, and I spoke to them about, I was asked to speak about imagining Australia in 20 years' time, when these young kids themselves will be young parents. You know, they themselves will have children entering those schools, and we spoke about the kind of Australia that we might have by then. And what I said, Neil, was that, you know, I was hoping that it'd be an Australia that would be reconciled in relation to questions about our identity and Australia Day, that we would recognise what I call the three stories of Australia, the Indigenous foundations, the British institutions, and, of course, our kind of multicultural success.
Yep.
And that was the theme of my talk last night.
And so you talked about what life would be like in 24/1. What would they be doing? You'll be 76. Noel Pearson. What will you be doing?
I'll be long gone, mate. And there's tremendous leadership amongst these young people.
Yeah.
I mean, they spoke, they introduced me and the other speakers. And I don't know if everybody's heard about young Mason from BBC, who
Yes.
spoke to his students about the issue
About
with
consent.
women's equality,
Yep.
about consent and so on. I got to meet young Mason last night,
Yep.
and he's a tremendously impressive young man, enormous courage, and these schools are blessed with so many people like Mason who are the future of our state and country, and I joined them in the journey of reconciliation and recognition. I pointed out that the recognition agenda was actually started by Prime Minister John Howard on the eve of the federal election in 2007. It's now 13 years later, and it's a difficult agenda, but it's one in which, you know, the polling that's been done for us by Crosby Textor,
Yes.
which is the Liberal Party's polling firm.
Crosby Textor, yep.
Crosby Textor. They are actually our campaign advisors and pollsters. And it shows a great 56% of Australians would vote today for recognition. 17% are not in favour. And the difference between the two are undecided.
So this is Noel, this is recognition where?
In the Constitution.
In the Constitution. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. I don't know why we're so slow to the party with it, Noel.
Yeah, 13 years later, mate. And, as I said, John Howard kicked off in 2007 on the eve of that election. In fact, he told he told the audience at the Sydney Institute back then that if he was re-elected, he would put a referendum question up within 18 months.
Yeah.
And, as I say, it's 13 years later and we still won't put the question to the Australian people. I'm hoping, Neil, that once the design of this voice is out there and everybody can see it, touch it, feel it, we can take the fear factor or any questions that people might have about it. We take all of that out of the equation, and then people will say, "Oh, gee, that's practical.
Yeah,
that's something I can support." And then we can go to the constitutional referendum.
Yep.
And as I say, Crosby Textor are telling us that there's a tremendous amount of support in the Australian community.
Yeah.
And they're saying they would vote yes.
Yep. For sure.
Neil,
for sure.
Of course, I put in a plug last night.
Yeah.
With these young people because, they're 17 going on 18.
And they're going to go to uni and they're going to vote.
And they're going to vote. In fact, they will be old enough to vote at the time this referendum happens. These young people will be defining the kind of Australia they want for their children in the future. And I'm hoping, Neil, it'll be an Australia where we're able to recognise that we're Indigenous. We're able to recognise that our institutions, our law, our democracy come from Britain. And, of course, we recognise the fact that we have migrants from all over the world who have successfully come to this country, contributed to the country, and call themselves Australians today.
For sure. Absolutely, 100% for sure. Hey, you keep mentioning university, Noel Pearson, and you graduated from a university in Sydney. You had degrees in history and law. That was in the early 90s. And you talked about the young girls going through Clayfield College and going to university. Because in the Indigenous community, a university education, even when you went through, was a rarity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was really the first university graduate from my community.
Yes.
And the young Tanya generation after me was the first from her community.
Yeah.
But when I look at the numbers, we've had 20-something years now of concerted effort of getting our kids from remote communities into these best schools. And, of course, when they get into a school like BBC or,
Somerville House or something like that,
Somerville House or Clayfield, they just get swept along on the coattails of these other kids who are striving to get to uni. And they think, oh, geez, I've got to do the same thing.
Yep.
And so when I look at the numbers, I see this huge numbers of kids who've gone on, who are lawyers now, who have done degrees in nursing and commerce and business and so on. So it's just very gratifying to see. And last night, I met the head border girl from Clayfield College, and she's an Indigenous kid on our scholarship program from Lockhart River in Cape York.
Yeah, great.
And I had no idea. And here she is, very eloquent. She led the welcome to country at the function.
Yep.
And I thought to myself, this is 25, 23 years later, and we now have hundreds of kids going through our programs and who are succeeding at the... Now, succeeding at the very highest level. And, it's, with all of the kind of dismal kind of stories and statistics about Indigenous affairs, there's reason to be hopeful about progress that's being made as well, Neil. I think we ought not get too depressed about how bad things are, because on some important
levels,
agendas we are making progress.
Yeah. And I think you're right, and education's the key. Hey, Noel Pearson, I could talk all day, but well done on the lecture last night and for everything you've done for this great state of ours in Queensland. And it was people like yourself, trailblazers, mate, who went to uni.
Yeah, Neil, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
No worries. Noel Pearson,
have
there he is.
Have a good one, mate.
Yeah, you have a good one too, Noel Pearson. He truly is a great Queenslander. And, Noel Pearson built the foundations of his life on education, and education's key. Education is absolutely key.